Joining me now to talk a little bit about her upcoming visit to Farmington in the Four Corners region. She is currently on her tour bus, making a stop in Albion, Illinois today. Renowned author Jan Brett is joining me this morning. Jan, good morning, Ms. Brett. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you.
You are, as I mentioned, in Albion, Illinois on the tour bus, and we were saying earlier, you look like a rock star traveling around the country in this tour bus. My goodness.
Well,
how's it going?
I certainly feel like a rock star when I see all those kids with their books and all excited about reading it. Nothing could make me happier.
I bet. Well, it's quite the tour, and it's going to bring you to New Mexico, of which I know a lot of folks are very excited about. And so, talk to me a little bit about this whole idea of going on tour and taking this bus across the country.
Well, I think the best part of it is that I don't have to be a small distance from a big hub if we flew by plane, and then I get to travel at night, so I'm able to travel some pretty decent distances. We have two bus drivers that drive us, and then I can carry like my easel and my artwork so that I can do a demonstration when people come to my book signing, and we have posters that we give out, and it just makes life really fun.
Very good. And so you have been on the road already for quite a while, and you'll be on for, is it a 3-week tour, or what were you telling me?
It's a 3-week tour, yes, and I just had my birthday.
Well, happy birthday. On the road.
On the road.
Okay. Well, very good. And you're coming to the Southwest, of course, and you'll be spending some time in New Mexico, a couple of days, and you were telling me that you've been to Farmington before. We weren't sure if you'd been here before, but you have.
Yeah, I think twice. Once when we were doing our cross-country road trip with our Tesla car, and one time on the book tour. And I went for a run because I'm a runner, and we went for a run all around there. It was great. And it snowed.
And it snowed. Okay.
And we weren't ready, so we had to wear socks on our hands.
Well, there you go. When you're a runner, you deal with that kind of stuff, I imagine, right?
Oh yeah,
You're used to it, and that's what you do. So, talk to me about your latest book, The Tale of the Tiger Slippers. I know
I've got it right here.
There it is.
It's an old tale set in Baghdad, of all places, because it's the Middle East, and it's about a grumpy old man who can't get rid of his slippers. They keep coming back to him. They're all grungy, and I thought, well, I love the story, but maybe something not. What would you choose, a tiger or a grumpy old man to draw? I choose the tiger.
Right.
So I set it in India, a little bit to the east. In those olden days when I set my story, those borders were all much changed.
Sure.
And so I based it after Mughal court art, which 15th, 16th, and 17th century. So I was able to draw the lavish clothes and the beautiful animals that are drawn in that kind of court art. And we went to India in order to get everything right. I would look at the miniatures, the Indian court miniatures, and then I would look at the animals, and then we would find them in the forest. And when we went to the tiger reserve in the central part of India, we were not promised we would see a tiger there. It's quite rare to see a sighting, but we did. We heard a huge, ferocious roar, and a male tiger, appeared out of the woods. It's more like a woods there than a jungle, but the experience was like mind-blowing. I don't use that word very often, but I just got goosebumps all over me, and I remember thinking, well, my brain is saying, this is a very dangerous animal, get in a safe place. That was what I was thinking.
Right.
Almost like it felt primal. It was very primal.
Interesting. How far away would you say you were from the tiger in the woods?
Ooh, I would say 20 feet. Really close.
That is really close.
After it came out of the forest, it kind of looked at us and made an expression like, oh, you're dust, you're nothing, and then walked and then sharpened its claws on a tree, and then at full length or upright position. It was probably 8 feet with its paws extended. It was really quite something to see.
I would think so.
There was a fear factor.
Sure. Well, that's for sure. But and the size of those animals are just amazing, I'm sure, when we're not used to seeing them.
How did you know that? I didn't know that. All these years of being interested in wildlife, was not ready for the largeness of this beast. It was really, really big.
Right. Well, it's amazing. And you mentioned, of course, your artwork, which is just fabulous, and the cover art, which we're showing on the screen too. from The Tale of the Tiger Slippers, and there's just so much detail and so much to look at. In fact, we were talking earlier with our guests from the library and the local bookstore about just, when you look at the cover art, especially when you look at it time and time again, you're always finding something new. There's so much detail, and that's probably by design, correct?
Yeah, I have kind of a signature style.
Yeah, you do,
which
right.
is just kind of the way I draw, and I put borders in my work so you can kind of have little asides about perhaps what some animals are doing in the periphery, because animals take the place of people in my story.
Right.
And then sometimes it will say what's going to come next, which I think is, when I was little, I loved to know what was going to come next in the story because I'd get attached to the characters. I wanted to find out, if anything bad was going to happen. I was one of these high anxiety kids. I wanted to know my character was not going to die. So
Right.
that's what I do is I put little forward-looking moments in the borders.
You bet. Well, and it's great. It's great. It's certainly a work of art for sure. And then the story is above and beyond. So you get all of that in a Jan Brett book. So it's wonderful. And I don't know if you know this, Jan Brett, but the library where you'll be in Farmington has a Jan Brett themed 20-foot tall Christmas tree.
Oh, no, really?
Yes,
I can't wait to see it.
Yes, they do.
That'll be amazing.
Yes, so they are excited for your trip. And talk to me a little bit about as you travel across the country and meeting all these fans of yours and the children who read your books and maybe the adults who have also maybe read your books or kept them from their childhoods and things like that. I mean, you must hear lots of stories about how your work has influenced these children over the years.
Yeah, it's really very heartwarming, and I'm at the sort of like I've had a career already, and so I can look back at some of these moments when I was drawing the book, and then to see years later that a little child will get their pointer finger out and they'll kind of trace the pages, and you can tell that they thought about the character. Or there'll be a grandmother that brings her child who's read the book, and now the little one is reading the book, and it makes me feel like so surprised at how, a story can have so much weight in a person's life, especially if they're maybe learning to read, or also I have a lot of aspiring artists. And those children I can always tell from a few feet away because, they'll be coming in line and they'll have this like really excited expression, and often they'll have lots of questions. And the best part is if they bring their artwork, because that's the future. And then I'm able to admire it. And sometimes I'm a little bit like, wow, that's really good. That person's going to be famous. They're going to take my place in the world of children's book illustration someday,
right.
Which is a happy thing.
But very inspiring, then, your work for these children.
Yeah, very inspiring. I'm inspired by the children and by these wonderful teachers and librarians that they will be bringing books to children that may not have them in the home, because even some people that are quite well educated, they're so worried about their children being ready for the computer world that they kind of neglect the books, and they're all into having the child be comfortable on the computer. But then the teachers have got this backup, which is they bring books in the classroom, and I can't tell you how many teachers have their own library in the class, and children can take out the books and bring them home. And that's the wonderful thing about a book. It's not a toy, but it's something you can keep close to you, and like you get in bed and open it up, or maybe in a quiet rainy day you can just get lost in the pages of your books, and it's an experience like no other.
That's very true. We were talking about that earlier, of course, and even though we have this electronic age, it's really hard to maybe do some of those things with an iPad or a tablet or something like that that you can do with a good old-fashioned book, and turning in the pages and filling the paper and all having that book experience. And it's hard to get you to probably sign an iPad, too, when someone comes to see you.
Yeah.
But that's
true.
But that's great. Now I want to ask you a bit more about your trip to India, and we have a picture of you from the trip, and it looks like you're maybe in an open-topped vehicle as you're touring around. And so, how long were you there doing your kind of research for this book?
We were there for 3 weeks. And we did see the tiger after 3 days.
Okay.
And that was the Jeep that we saw the tiger from. So you can see how you felt a little bit vulnerable.
You were a little
But we
exposed
saw-
in that Jeep, yeah.
Yeah. But what would happen is the animals, the monkeys and the deer would make alarm calls. And that's how we knew that there was a tiger abroad. And they don't even let you in the park like before 10:30 or after 3:30 because that's when the tigers are hunting. And they're still fearsome predators. There's people there are man-eating tigers left in India that are still there. But the cool thing is, because they're endangered, they have all these people on elephants that are there to protect the tigers. So they know what tourists are in those little Jeeps, looking at the wildlife, the plants too, the plants and the animals. And then if there's anybody that's trying to poach the tigers, then the ones in the elephants, they'll be patrolling and making sure that they're safe, that the tigers are safe. So that was the Indian government does that.
Sure.
So there are 3 different tiger reserves, and because they were once the hunting grounds in the olden days, like going way back to the 16th, 15th century, of these great rulers, Indian rulers, they were kept quite pristine. So you're seeing the whole ecosystem as probably it was hundreds of years ago. So that was just in itself, it was worth going on the trip. Beautiful landscapes with giant granite cliffs, and sometimes you would see a carving of a Buddha, and it was really quite a memorable experience. And I tried to put a little bit of it in the book. The only thing is I had to use my imagination a little bit because I had to make it in a time when peacocks could talk and tigers could wear clothes.
Right. Well, sure.
So I had to make it like in the midst of time.
Of course.
Using my imagination. And I hope that children will be inspired to use their imaginations because we all have one.
That's true.
And it just needs to be exercised.
That's very true. And I would think it must give you a lot of inspiration, though, to go to these places and to really kind of see some of the different layers of these ancient lands and things like that, to put them into your stories.
Yes, it's true. It's daunting and inspiring, but it's just something as specific as color, because you would see women, would go through farmlands on the way to the parks, and the color of the saris were just beautiful, and the buses would be, like a bus, like a regular bus that would go from town to town, would be all decorated with, it had eyes in the front. It was kind of fanciful, and I kept all those things in my mind when I was illustrating the book, plus lots and lots of books that I brought back. Like when I get to customs, they always go like, "What have you got in your suitcases?" And I'll say, "Books," because books are heavy.
That's right. That's true. That's very true. And you had, I'm sure, some chances to meet some of the people that live in that area. And does that help you maybe when you're thinking about the personalities for your characters in these books?
Well, when I go, it's almost like a treasure hunt. I'm very specifically looking for things that will go in the book. So the guides will be very, very helpful. And we actually were looking a lot at birds, because the bird life there is very amazing. With probably on the top of the pyramid of amazing birds is the peacock. And you would see flocks of peacocks walking along, and then you'd turn a corner on these, like you go through these dirt trails through the woods, and you turn the corner, and there would be a peacock displaying, with his tail fanned out, and all the feathers are wiggling back and forth, and there's the female going, yeah, you look pretty good. Maybe I'll make friends with you. It was really cool. And they would roost in the trees, and then sometimes you'd come along, and there'd be like peacock feathers, and you'd say, oh, that peacock didn't fly away fast enough.
Maybe not.
The tiger has been there.
Right, that's true, very true. But it's kind of the survival of the fittest in the woods, the jungles of India, as you said,
yes,
right?
Yes, it is. And then we saw the red jungle fowl, which is the ancestor of all chickens, and they look just like a big chicken. So it was really strange to be going through the woods and hear, and I go, oh, that sounds like a rooster. It is a rooster, but it's a red jungle fowl.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'm speaking with author Jan Brett from her tour bus outside of Albion, Illinois. She is on her way to Farmington, New Mexico. She'll be appearing at the Farmington Public Library in a special event coming up on December the 11th. And Jan Brett, before we run out of time, is there any hints as to what's next, what you're working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a book set in Alaska, and it's about a muskox, which is a Arctic goat.
Okay.
They're about as tall as, excuse me, maybe a small cow, but but they're not in that family. They're in the goat/sheep family, and they live in temperatures below 50 degrees, but they're adorable. They're all brown, and they have little white noses and little white legs, and the babies are especially cute. So my story is about this muskox. All the Arctic animals want to get under its furry coat, so they have a nice warm place to stay the winter. And the name of the book is Cozy, which I think is kind of cute.
That will be kind of cute. And is it going to be published soon, or is it out already?
No, not till next fall.
Next fall.
As a matter of fact, at Christmas time, I'm going up to the muskox farm in Palmer, Alaska, to see one of the ones that I symbolically adopted, Teal. It was a little baby one.
Okay.
And look at them again, because I need some close-ups.
Right.
Of what a real muskox looks, and there's no way I'm going to go up to the Arctic Circle and go through the Arctic winter to find a muskox that's wild.
I understand. That makes perfect sense to me. Well, Jan Brett, we can't thank you enough for joining us from your tour bus and on your way to Farmington. Safe travels to you. And, of course, we'll remind everyone about the event coming up at the Farmington Public Library again on December the 11th, beginning at 5 p.m., Wednesday, December 11th, here at the Farmington Public Library. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. I can't wait to see everyone.
We will see you soon. Thank you very much, Jan Brett. You're very welcome.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Author Jan Brett, my guest here on KSJE.